My picture's there not because I like to look at myself, but it's because quite often I do this online, so they can't actually see me. So if they then see me at an event or anything, they can say hello. But I'm the product specialist for Inspiration, working with basically schools, universities, resellers, for example, in the UK, Ireland, and internationally. And that's in terms of marketing and in terms of assisting in the product development in terms of this area of the market. And so just to give you some context to Inspiration, it's over 30 years now, and as a mind mapping tool, it effectively was one of the first there to take the principles of mind mapping and create a tool for education. And so that's wholly what the product, the company is about. It's about mind mapping within an educational context. So we don't go into the sort of business sector. We're not necessarily about productivity from a business perspective. Our ethos is in terms of developing a tool that will enable a learner and help them to progress and maximise their attainment. Worldwide, Inspiration, if you're not aware, is a US-based company, but we do operate globally. We have 25 million users worldwide, so that's students and teachers. So why is Inspiration? I mean, there's lots of mind mapping products out there. So why are we different? It's mainly because, as I touched on earlier, we are just wholly focused on education. So it's all about the learning, helping students to learn and to develop their thinking skills, their critical logic, problem solving, that aspect. Sort of the key sort of soft skills in terms of education. And so over the 30 years, we've acquired over 100 different awards. As I said, we've got 25 million users, and there's quite a bit of research out there, not just about Inspiration, about the uses of mind mapping and its benefits to students. Also, just to give you the context in terms of the breadth of our solutions, we go right down to age 4+. So Inspiration, which is the focus of today, is designed to go from primary level, from age 8 upwards. So it's all about simplistic tools. So we don't try to overcomplicate our products. The key bit is to put as little barriers in the process so that we can aid the learning process. So they're focused in terms of learning, not necessarily in terms of how to use the tool. But we do have a product called Kidspiration, if you're interested. That's for age 4+. Very sort of graphical, obviously an interface that's very designed for younger age. Inspiration. And we do have a tool called Inspired Data, which is, I guess, a hybrid between a spreadsheet and a database. So for students who perhaps struggle with using databases, spreadsheets in terms of analysis, it's a visual way to be able to do that sort of number crunching and to evaluate and ascertain various different relationships between different data sets. So, as well as our desktop applications, we do have our iPad versions. We are currently looking at Android, but predominantly because the education sector, the school sector, has been very iPad focused, we've particularly focused on that area. So we have Inspiration Maps and we have Kidspiration Maps. So Inspiration Maps is obviously for those that are age 8 upwards and actually works in tandem with the desktop version. So you can see it as an extension to the desktop application. And so there is a free app of that on the iTunes store. So yourself, students can go onto iTunes and download a free one. The restrictions of the free one is that doesn't sync in with the desktop and it's restricted to 5 documents at any one time. But it gives you a good ability to play with the software, see what you think about it before you then go on to buy the app, which is $6.99 off iTunes. I'm not sure in Ireland which iTunes you access, whether it's the UK one or a European, but in the UK it's $6.99 for the app. And again, if you're interested in the younger one, there's Inspiration Maps itself. So the idea being is particularly if a student's got the desktop version, it might be on their laptop, but within a sort of a lecture situation, they have a more mobile mind mapping tool that they can use to effectively create their notes on the fly in a more sort of mobile situation. I do have an iPad here with the app, so if you want to have a look at it afterwards, then please feel free to ask. Okay, so effectively this is a truncated workshop. So we'll briefly be talking about what is visual learning, the benefits to users, and so this will be a recap. A lot of you will be familiar with this. The nuts and bolts will be a tour of Inspiration 9, just going through all the key features, and then finally at the end is this certified trainer program. So for assistive technology specialists, for disability officers, we offer free CPD. And the idea behind that is, and I think it was touched on earlier with Dragon in terms of the abandon, getting students to use the software. So we have got a free program in place to support those that are helping students in terms of getting engaged with products. Also in terms of obviously making everyone aware of the features and the benefits of that. There are also lots of stuff within the software itself in terms of being able to effectively self-help. So, Inspiration, what is it? So it's a graphical techniques to communicate and present information, and it's naturally based on, obviously you've got 3 learning styles: auditory, kinesthetic and visual, and Inspiration is a natural extension to those that are visual learners. And it also, Inspiration benefits from this dual coding approach. So you've got the visual elements, so you've got symbols, graphics, the spatial relationship itself. So where you place these symbols is also part of how you organise and structure information. And then you've got the verbal cues, so the words, the sentences that you might use. So these, if I go on to the next one, so basically these symbols and images represent ideas, and we represent these ideas with links, and so we then might use the verbal cues, text, labelling and this link phrase to actually then explain the concept while we're relating one idea to another. And for example, within here, this is a concept map. So Inspiration has 2 fundamental different canvases in terms of how you mind map. So we've got the diagram view, and this is a concept map. So Inspiration in the US is called a graphic organizer. I mean, I'm guilty of calling it a mind mapping tool, but mind mapping is just one technique. And so Inspiration is a graphic organizer tool. So you can do mind maps, you can do concept maps, and this is an example of a concept map. So where you're getting a student to be able to communicate an idea or concept. And so the idea being with this is that effectively when you start to look at it, and maybe a tutor or lecturer is looking at this, they can effectively read it. So DNA goes through replication, which occurs during cell division. And so what we're getting an understanding is, by looking at this, is the student's comprehension of the subject and why they are linking certain ideas to another. Now, we've got things such as link phrases, which is quite a simple tool within Inspiration, but it's something that's often quite missed out. It's not obvious to a lot of people. So, and I'll go through that, is where what you do is use that to be able to explain why you link one idea to another. And so that's very important, one in terms of understanding the student's understanding, but particularly when they map out an idea or a concept which is wrong, it might be incorrect. By using these link phrases, you can quickly identify what the misconception is and then develop some intervention strategies to obviously correct that. So Inspiration itself is a kind of, the product itself is part of developing a learning process. We can also see we've used spatial relationships in here, so we've got certain areas to represent certain ideas. We're using colour as well to be able to organise and categorise information. So lots of ways to be able to organise our thoughts and ideas. So the key benefits, fundamentally, quite often it's to aid memory retention and develop comprehension. So, for example, our brain works visually. If I say the word apple, generally what will flash up into your mind is a picture. And so that's the whole premise of Inspiration, is using images to be able to communicate and to understand concepts. It's also good in terms of aiding communication, so being able to, if you've got something to explain, sometimes it's particularly for students who have various different learning support needs, they may struggle in terms of communicating via text, they may be reluctant writers. It's another alternative way to be able to communicate. stimulating creativity. So again, we'll talk through one of the features, was the rapid fire tool, which is very popular, a feature of inspiration, where basically it's part of that pre-writing strategy. To write, you need to have ideas, and so what inspiration does is it gives you the tools to be able to stimulate and generate those ideas. So some of the tools are about ideas generation, encourages and supports planning. So it's a natural tool, so you might have a project, so you might, for example, decide what are the various different milestones, document, brainstorm that, and then start to sequence that, and then you've got your project plan. It includes loads of different templates, so you don't have to start from a blank screen. So if you've got a project, there are lots of different templates which you can use as a starter to get you going. Again, that might be crucial in terms of where students, perhaps their thoughts are a bit muddled, or they struggle to sort of process what they need to put down first, what they need to focus on. So those templates are very useful in terms of that. And then the final bit is mapping to an outline view. So we could do all of this in pen and paper, but then you've got your nice pretty picture. You've still got to do that writing process. By doing it digitally using software, we're able to actually then transfer that visual ideas into effectively a word processor document, which you could then continue to work with, or a PowerPoint document, which is generally what is expected to be handed in. So we're now going to go into looking into inspiration, and so we'll look at the four main areas. So we'll look at the diagram view, then we'll go on to the map view, which is the more traditional style of Busan style of mind mapping with the one central ideas and branches coming off. And so this is where, again, inspiration is unique. We give two different ways to do this sort of visual learning, visual mind mapping technique. So some students prefer one way, other students prefer other ways, same with users as well. So it's horses for courses. So we do give users the choice of what environment to go in to be able to do their mind mapping. We'll look at the outline view. So obviously we've got all of our ideas down, we've organised it and structured it, so how do we start that writing process? And then finally we'll look at the presentation manager, which again is a feature, a very powerful but easy feature, but again is one thing that tends to be forgotten, and it's a quick way to turn those visual ideas into a finished, polished presentation. So I'm just going to flip over to the software. Are there any questions so far? Does that all make sense? Right, hold on, it's just gone into the... Just bear a second, it's just gone into dual screen mode. Just going to mirror it. There's a couple of things I'm just going to show you before I sort of dive into the software. One is, one of the sort of benefits of inspiration is this whole concept of ideas generation. Being able to create those ideas to start the writing process. To write an essay, to write a project, you need ideas. And so, as I go up and down the country, training and talking to assessors and disability officers and teachers, etc., you sort of pick up on various different techniques. And so, one of the techniques I wanted to show was where a student's got an essay, and so this might be a 1,000-word essay, and so to develop that essay you need ideas. And so one of the techniques is actually looking at, well, what's an essay broken down into. So generally you've got sentences, so there's 15 to 20 words in a sentence. You might have 3 to 5 sentences in a paragraph, and in a paragraph there might be generally 2 ideas within that. So using that as a basis, you could say that, well, I'll need 35 to 40 different ideas to effectively be the foundation for generating a 1,000-word essay. Now we could scale that up. So if it was a 10,000-word essay, I'd need 350 different ideas, for example. But that gives a student who perhaps is a reluctant writer, one that struggles to put pen to paper, to actually think about those ideas that they need to start that process off. And so how can they do that? One of the techniques is using the, and you may have come across this, the why, who, what, when, where process, and I've just got a video of how that can be used in terms of inspiration. So I'm just going to hope this is going to come out on the speaker.
Hello there, my name is Andy Clark, and this is a short video to
didn't realise the speaker had gone.
blog article on exploring the basics
Can you hear that?
of writing. What I thought we could do today is just spend a couple of minutes looking at the concepts of ideas generation and structure mapping using inspiration as a visual structure tool to help inform our writing. What I'm going to start with is I thought we could have a look at something that's in the news at the moment, the Woolwich attack down in London. Basically, what we're going to do is just ask a few questions and see if we can start generating some ideas that we can then take forward to build into some structure for our writing. Well, quite often what we're doing is we're trying to inform research, which will help us to pull together more information and ensure that our writing has good depth and structure to it. Okay, so what we're going to do is just simply rapid fire from here. And I'm going to ask this first question, okay, who? So who is involved? So we have the victim, and we have the perpetrators, and we also have local onlookers, and we also have the security forces. Okay, so once we've got a few who's together, we can start thinking about, well, what? So what is this about? Well, it was an attack, and it was also a murder. And then we can think a little bit about when. So when did this occur? Well, it was in the middle of the day. Notice I'm not going too deep into any of these. I'm just pulling out the first few thoughts that I have about each of these questions, and you'll see why in a few seconds. And then we start thinking about questions like where. Well, we know that there was a barracks, and it was in London, and it was just a normal street. That's one thing that always comes back from the reports. Okay, and we could go in and say Woolwich, but we've already said Woolwich. And then we could say, well, why? So what was this about? Well, we know that one of the perpetrators said that this was about revenge, and it was also politically motivated. Okay. So what we've done there is we've just basically pulled together a few points from asking questions such as who, what, when, where, why. We could also ask questions like how and build up a bigger picture from there. What I want to do is just simply move some of these things around and start to think about how this information could be used to help generate ideas and stimulate our thought processes and move that forward into our writing. So the first things we can do is just take any of these from the outside and start to think about how they might relate to other elements. So for instance, we could pick up local onlookers, and we can think about, okay, middle of the day. Well, okay, what was going on? Where were people going? What were they doing on a normal day around this time? And then we can think about local onlookers. Okay, so these are people local to the barracks. Do they know much about the security forces in that area? And the barracks, do they have a relationship with those? Local onlookers in London, well, we know that there's a mixed populace in London. It's a very multicultural society. So maybe the actual, demographic of the people that are around, maybe that may have an impact onto how they saw things and what was happening. And so on. We can talk about any of these and start thinking about how they might impact in any of these others. And at any point we can open up a note window and add a few thoughts or ideas. So say if we were thinking about local onlookers and say the victim, well, we could ask the question, did any of the onlookers know the victim? So that's a good example of something that might help research. But we do know that some of the onlookers talked to the perpetrators, okay, and got first-hand testimony. We also know that film was taken, okay. So we've got a mixture here of things that we'd like to know more about and also some things that we know, and these will help build our ideas. And then as we go along, we can start thinking about, okay, London and security forces. Are they different in London, say, to anywhere else? Is there anything special about it? How long did it take for them to arrive? What did they do once they arrived? Is this different to London? And then we can think about London and revenge. Is there a lot of revenge attacks in London? Is it different to elsewhere across the country or around the world? And so on. And we can pick any of these and compare it and contrast it to any of the others. We can even take multiples. So we can think about, okay, the actual attack. So let's take attack, victim, and perpetrators. Any of these three things together, or any of these three things together. So what we can do is we can take more than one of these symbols and think about how they might form together to bring up another thought or another idea. And again, we can add notes to those and so on. So the objective is that as we continue, in the background, our outline starts to demonstrate some of our ideas, and we have got a basic structural form there, so our ideas are collated together in chunks so that they might be useful to make up, say, paragraphs or sections of our writing. One of the great things about doing it this way is that I can very quickly and easily look at my breakdown of ideas and start to quantify them. So how many ideas have I got? Have I got enough to start informing additional research? Or have I got enough, say, to move into a writing stage to actually put together a portion or all of my writing, my first draft? So the objective here is to use our diagram view to help inform us of our ideas, build them together, and then use those and move them across into our writing. I'm not going to go any further than that. What I'd like
I'm just going to stop that there.
If you've got some time, is simply
But that was just an example of one technique in terms of, this is a particular assistive technology assessor, and one of the techniques he uses to train students. And so we've got a whole range of these sort of, there's about three videos that we've done in terms of using inspiration in terms of the writing process. So I can certainly pass on to James if that's something that you're interested in terms of viewing. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a quick project just to show you how quickly it can be done. And so I'm going to sit down for this because I find that if I type standing up, I can't do it. So we're going to do the same as before. We've got our blank screen. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that. There are templates. So if I go to New and go down here to Templates, there's a whole plethora of different templates that are available, all arranged into different subject areas, and including thinking and planning. So I could be looking at English, and for example, if I click on any one of these, I see a small thumbnail of that particular template. There's haiku there. Perhaps I'll have a look at that. I'm taking a stab at writing a haiku, so I'll do open, and I've got a template there. So I don't necessarily have to start from scratch. I've got some templates that I can work from. That's good in terms of perhaps narrowing my focus and really getting me to think about what I need to think about to accomplish a particular task. These can be all adapted and changed and added to, so they just are a starting point. The other thing I just wanted to quickly show you was, if I'm still on the Wi-Fi, is again if I go to New and go to Learn to Use, there are a whole range of different training videos, and these are broken up into the various different areas, and basically they cover each one of the key features, and they're only about, say, 1 minute to 2 minutes long, so they're very granular videos. So for students, it allows them to do an element of the self-help themselves if they get stuck on a particular feature. So in the diagram view, for example, you might be using the rapid fire tool, which is one of the common ones. You would, might be a bit slow with the Wi-Fi.
The rapid fire tool provides a quick way to enter ideas into your diagram and is great for brainstorming.
And so it would show the user how to use that particular feature. So very short, sharp tutorials. There's over 60 of them covering the key features. Now, we're going to do our project. which is conserving energy, which is something hopefully we can all relate to and contribute to. So we've got our project, conserving energy. We're going to do this from scratch, and I'm going to use the rapid fire tool. So I'm going to fire this over to you. So we've got this project which is conserving energy. So as a start off, any ideas of things that we might want to think about in terms of this project? I'll start off with one in terms of benefits, but can you think of anything? Anything at random? No right or wrong. We're not worrying if the answers are great or not. This is just getting the ideas out.
Financial benefits.
Okay, financial. Anything else?
Insulation.
Insulation. All I'm doing is typing and entering. I don't even have to look at the screen to start creating this map. It's just doing it automatically.
Carrots and methane?
Sorry?
Methane from carrots?
Yeah, methane. We could be looking at methods. So we're starting to quickly build up a map. And within this particular environment, we can move any of these symbols anywhere we would like. And so as the diagram becomes more complex, you might have certain areas to categorize certain information. In others, you might move it somewhere else. And so as we start to look at each idea, we can then start to delve down deeper. So we could start look at methods and again use the rapid fire tool. So okay, give me some ideas of how we could conserve energy.
Switching off our lights.
Switching off lights.
Water charges.
Water charges. Okay, we keep it there. Now, as you can see, we're starting to build up our map. Now, we had installation here. Now, perhaps it would be best suited to be of a subcategory of methods. So we can break that link. We can move it there. Now, at the moment, it's a bit orphaned. So we can go up to its parent symbol, click on the link, and we attach it. We can also, for example, use our graphics library. So if you're online, you have access to over 1 million symbols. And so they are organised into various different topic areas, subject areas. You can also search for it via this search area here at the bottom. Just so happens, if, for example, I wanted to add to add in recycling, I could drop that in there. I'll then link that up. The key bit of having access to over 1 million symbols means that you don't always have to use text to explain your ideas. So, and this is why it can go right down to pre-readers and writers in terms of they can use images to explain those ideas. Now, I can label it if I want to, so recycling, and build that up. And as I'm doing this, I'm constantly moving it around. I'm using this to be able to organise my information. I can also start to use colour, which is very good, particularly for dyslexia, in terms of, again, being able to categorise information. So I can multi-select certain symbols just by pressing Shift and selecting them. And I can start to colour annotate them. So that could be green. Benefits, maybe perhaps I want to put some ideas of benefits in there. Again, I can use this Create tool. You see as I'm hovering over it, it's highlighting a certain branch that determines the next, the o'clock direction of that particular next symbol, and I can put it in there. So benefits, saving the environment. And again, as this is a subgroup, I can colour code it. So colour helps me to be able to navigate through this diagram. Now, let's have a look. We've got an earth here. Now we've got methane. Where's that methane one? There. And you specifically gave the example of the cows. So let's have a look and we'll search for cows. We could have a serious cow or a comical cow. Any preference? Comical. So we'll drop that in. And now we've got, it looks like something's coming out of him. I don't know what that orange thing is, but. So again, we're using images now to help explain our ideas, and these links are connecting those ideas to each other. Now, one of the features I was talking about was this link phrase tool. So what we want to do is explain how one idea connects to another. And so we can click on a link and we can right-click, and we've got this bank of different reasons as to why we'd link one idea to another. And causes, contains, excludes, for example. We've got even more. So we've got effects, we've got influences, a subset of, is inversely related to. So quite a rich list of explanations of why we might link one idea to another. And that's really useful for subjects such as science, maths, for example, where perhaps you're using this. In this example, we just need to say includes. So conserving energy methods includes recycling. So again, it's now being that I'm starting to read this diagram. Now, again, further, I want to add some notes. So I'm starting the writing process. So I click on the notes screen. It was yourself that had the idea on financial, wasn't it? Yeah. Do you want to?
Financial, as in financial benefits could be just money could be spent for fun things if we conserve
Money could be.
So I was thinking kind of, the power saving bulbs.
Yeah.
For some reason. But, that's not what
Okay.
I'm going to say about this.
So again, I'm starting that writing process. I can even have hyperlinks within here. So if I did inspiration.com, it would hyperlink. Now there could be documents. So if we were being serious here and it was a reference site I was referencing it to, and I wanted to remember what that website is or what that document was, I could highlight that, click on hyperlink, and I can link to a website, I could link to a file, I could link to another inspiration document. So, and I can have multiple links within that notes area. So just pick something at random. I have no idea what that is, but I'm just going to select it. And so if I was to click on that, that would then open up that file. So what we find is lots of students and users will use this as a basis to be able to aggregate all of the research material that they've gathered. So it becomes a sort of repository, a way of being able to sort that information out. Now, there are some other aspects to this. Just quickly, the white might be a bit harsh in people's eyes, so we can change the background colour. And there are loads of stuff within the preference area and the default settings area, so you can set certain defaults in terms of fonts, font colours, that type of thing that's suited to that particular learner. You can either have it where when you go into the outline view, you can have subtopics and topics and various different levels in different colours, which when you've got a big passage of text, makes it easier to be able to go through. As we build this map up, we can start to arrange it, so perhaps get it to be tidied up, so maybe we can have some curves within here. Another useful thing is to have arrange in outline order. So when later on we go into the outline view, sometimes users will start to make adjustments in the outline view. By ticking that, Inspiration will then try and make the reasonable adjustment back in the diagram view as well, because it's fully integrated. Whatever you do in the writing view will get represented back in this view as well. And so that will arrange it for you, so it's saving you work in terms of doing that yourself. Now, we can, for example, have this tip here where if I click out, you won't necessarily see that there's a note being attached to a certain symbol, which was in financial. So to ensure that I can always see it, I just go to Quick Controls and do Always Show. And that will always show all of these different control elements. So I can open a note and always see it. You can also see these basically collapse and expand controls. So I can expand and collapse the layers. Now this also can be useful for once you've mapped your ideas in terms of revision techniques. So again, it's a bit like the sort of flashcards, so you can show a hint and then start to expand it out. Yeah, maybe I can remember this, maybe I can't, and then start to open it up. The other thing I find it useful for is sometimes doing presentations. I don't want to do the PowerPoint, the death by slides type approach, or I haven't got enough time. This is a quick way for me to be able to map out what I need to talk about, so I can use this in a presentation, for example, as a different way of being able to present ideas, and as I'm talking, to be able to expand out the diagram as I'm explaining each element. Now, as I start to build this up, I can then go to the outline view. So, as I've built this, it's now created the writing format. I can change things, I can add things to it. So, to conserving energy, I could add a subtopic, reduce usage. Oh, didn't do that. I could add notes within that. Lower our need for natural resources. It's got a built-in spell checker, it's highlighted that. I can then right-click, choose the right word. There's also a built-in thesaurus word guide, so I can go into there. It will give me the definition, it will then give me the synonyms in terms of similar words, but it will also give me antonyms, opposite words to that. So it's a way in terms of being able to develop vocab, check things as well. I can, for example, if I go to utility preferences and go to audio, there's a listen tool and a record sound tool and a talking interface. So I can get the interface to talk back. There is a listen tool as well, so there is a text-to-speech within here, built in. It uses the Microsoft engine, or the same for if you're on a Mac OS, using whatever voices that you've got, say, within Microsoft. And so I can, for example, if I click on the listen tool, have things read back to me.
Reduce usage. Lower our need for natural resources.
And so I've added that reduce usage. Now if I go back, now this is where it's fully integrated. It will then re-update that diagram. I've now got that there, reduce usage, and I've got the got our notes within there as well. So I don't need to make an adaptation back in the diagram note. Whatever you do in one way, it will then reflect in the other. Now I haven't got a huge amount of time, so I'm going to try and whistle through the other features. And so we might want to, at this stage, take this to Word. It could be quite a big diagram. And so to do that, I would click on Transfer. It gives me options to include the diagram, all of the sections. I can choose to have all of the sections. I can choose to have part of the sections taken across. I do OK. It will ask me to save it because I haven't. And then what it will then do is transfer it to Word or OpenOffice, whatever you're using as your word processor document. Other things that it can do is sometimes you'll have your mind mapping view, great for, which is good for visual learners. You take them into this outline view and they've lost the connection from the graphical elements, those bits that we're trying to help them in terms of remember their ideas. So there is this show symbols, which allows the symbols that were associated with those ideas to be shown. So again, it's a reminder of why they put down that particular idea, that type of thing. You can also change the prefixes, alphanumerical, you can have just bullets. There's lots of configuration you can do in here. If it becomes a very big text piece, a lot of students actually use this as their word processing document. One, because they like that show symbols, so they can continually refer back to the visual ideas. But also, when you come to really big pieces of text, you can set the default so that subtopics and topics will be in different colours. So again, it helps you to navigate through big pieces of text. You can also hide and show certain sections, so you can start to chunk the text down so that you're just narrowing on a certain piece of section of the text rather than the whole piece, if that scares you, makes you feel uncomfortable. Right, so I've shown you the diagram view, I've I've shown you the outline view. I'll show you the map view, which shouldn't take too long. So, and also just to know, if you start off in the diagram view, you can then transfer it to be a map view and vice versa. So if you choose one technique and then decide, actually I wish I'd done the other one, you're not locked into a cul-de-sac, you can make the transfer. So we've got another idea.
Central idea.
I'll turn it off. So we've got now the sort of Buzan style of mind mapping. So you've got your central idea and you've got branches coming off. Some students prefer this because it's more structured. So what we tend to find is the diagram view, it's students within the more sort of arts-based subjects, so literacy, the arts, where they want the flexibility to put all their ideas in certain, where they want it basically to communicate their ideas. For those students who prefer more of a structure, this is more the ideal sort of canvas. So your branches are already there, they're already colour coded, it does a lot of things for you. So if we were looking at my carbon footprint, I then simply just have to add in my labels: reduce, reuse, recycle, transport, electricity, housing. And then I can then create branches that come off it. Energy saving bulbs. And as you can see, as I'm creating those branches, that colour is following on. So the colour coding is happening automatically. I could have insulate. I could have car here. And then public transport. Now I might want some pictures in here. So we'll have find cars, easiest way to do it. So I'll drop in a car, I might put in a taxi in for public transport. Insulate, I might find actually this fits under housing, so I can then graph that across over to housing. So you can move things around. And so, and the other bit to it is, a lot of the functionality in diagram is available in this, it's just a different way of being able to mind map. Just wanted to show you another thing as well, is if I do a right click, I could do video or sound. I mean, I can insert video within here and it will embed the video within the thing. I'm going to record some sound. And so, refrigerators and air conditioning units are big users of electricity. And so I don't necessarily have to do written notes. I could do short audio notes to remind myself. So you see the control there. Refrigerators and air conditioning units are big users of electricity. So again, they can act as prompts. So just another way, again, of being able to capture your ideas. Now, again, as I said, very similar to the diagram view, just a different way and approach. I'm going to show you the presentation manager. So if I go to an example, so I'll go to new, and I'm just going to pull up something that a student has done, go to examples. And again, there's loads of examples that you can refer students to just to get an understanding of what you can do with inspiration. So we've got Glass Menagerie, which is a book by Tennessee Williams, normal sort of southern style dysfunctional family type thing. So this is a mind map by a student. And at first it looks quite chaotic, but actually they've used a lot of the techniques. So within here we've got our spatial relationship. So clearly here is about Tennessee Williams, within here is about the scenes. Over here we're talking about themes, and here we've got characters. We've got images, we've got symbols representing certain ideas, and obviously we've got the ideas linking to one another. So when you start to drill into it, actually they've used a lot of the techniques that we're looking for. But what we want to do is actually transfer this to something that they can present in a PowerPoint presentation. Now you could, for example, just go to File, and you've always been able to do this, well, just do Export to PowerPoint. And that will give you just a basic framework structure. So, but what we can do is use this presentation tool. So you can click on presentation. A bit like PowerPoint, you can choose your theme. You can choose how many containers you want on that, on each slide, whether you want notes as speakers notes, include a title slide. So what it does is it rips that diagram apart and it creates slides for each key section. So main topic areas are the slides, subtopics are the bullets. You can then go through and start to customize it. We can have different colors for each slide. For example, we could go through, we could change the bullets. So it's not set in stone, we can work on this as we would do in PowerPoint. We could add further stuff, another character. We can delete stuff off. So everything you could do in PowerPoint pretty much on a normal level you can do within this environment. You can amend the notes, for example. But what I wanted to show you, can add more slides, you can move things around. What I wanted to show you was actually this particular feature. So this is what we call the snapshot feature. So what Inspiration does is it takes that mind map, and you saw how chaotic it was, you know, and how rich it was. It analyses that diagram and it identifies the key section within that particular diagram. And so as you're going through, what you've now got is a bank of different images, screenshots. And so as you look at a particular slide, you'll then find a particular section which best suits and supports the argument that you're making, the comment that you're making. And you can go through and quickly start to just drag and drop them in. So this is where it becomes a real sort of productivity tool. So very quickly, we've moved from the ideas generation, organising, structuring it, the writing process, moving into now where we're trying to present our ideas. And so we can go through, if as we're working through this, we come to a slide where there isn't something here that supports what I'm trying to talk about. I can go to create snapshot, do OK. I'll pick an area, I'll take a picture, accept. I could do multiple different images. It will tell me if I've taken a picture of something that's already in there and say, you've already got that. Yeah, just told me that it's already existed. So let's try another one. So it'll go back, it'll drop it in there at the top, and I can drag it in. So quite quickly I've now got a very sort of multimedia rich presentation. Now the key bit then is how do you share it? At this point, and this is where we advise them to do the export to PowerPoint, you can export it to PowerPoint, it will keep the themes, it will keep all the images in there, and effectively you'll have a nice piece that maybe you want to finish off in PowerPoint, or maybe that's how it's going to be shared. You can export it to PDF, or you can save it, say, to a USB stick, and if you do go to Help and copy Inspiration Presenter, you can save a file to the same folder as where the presentation is, and so someone without Inspiration can then view this as well. And in that way they can also view things such as the reveal talking points or slide transitions and those types of features. So there's lots of different ways in which you can share it. So how Inspiration has evolved is it's moved from giving you tools to be able to generate your ideas, be able to organise and structure that information, to then be able to move into the writing process and give you tools to make that as easy as possible, while still connecting with that sort of visual approach. And then once you've done your writing process, you then either choose to go to a word processor to finish off, or to finish it off as a presentation. So it becomes a learning tool that ends up as a productivity tool. And so that's as much as I was going to show you. There's quite a lot more, but and so we do have sort of webinars and that type of thing, that sort of hour and a half that goes into this plus more.